when I first, gosh, it was in 1995, and I was probably in my 40s or something, and I had been very shy and inhibited, about my body, and I still am in a way, but I went ahead and I did this. I got Joseph Kramer's video, Fire on the Mountain, which is about Taoist erotic massage that men can share. Men of all kinds, potentially, regardless of their sexuality. But I didn't have anyone to practice with, so I did it with myself. And I had never experienced such intense and prolonged and high levels of pleasure. And it was kind of almost intimidating. I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then I surrendered to it. And, I think it was like over time, I did this every day, probably for some hours, almost every day for about 6 weeks. And I didn't ejaculate that whole time.
Wow.
This was like the Taoist, this is the alchemy.
Right.
Blue that really happens is you change yourself. And I didn't know until now. I know exactly what happened was I reimprinted myself. It's a neurological imprint. And, there's two basic ways in which we get our determination structure that tells us what reality is. One is called conditioning, and that's just beliefs and opinions. And most of that comes from other people. It's what Don Miguel Ruiz calls agreements. Those are beliefs you learn, and you accept them on some level. And a lot of that happens when you're a little tiny child, and you never change it necessarily. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you can change a belief relatively easy compared to imprints are more controversial in human beings, but it's like we know, for example, little baby birds. If you're there when they hatch, they look at you. If you're the first thing they see, it's like, mommy, and daddy. And little baby ducks, if you hatch them in an incubator and you're there when they hatch, they'll follow you around. Just like, you get your ducks in a row is a saying, right? The ducks will, a little line of baby ducks will be following you around because they imprint you as their parent.
Right.
It's a very simple function in nature. And what we've learned is there's more than one kind of imprint. That's probably a biosurvival imprint. Your parent take care of you, And what I learned, I apparently reimprinted myself through this erotic intensity because it does the same. This stress is not necessarily bad stress. It can also be like in the psychedelic journeys that were done therapeutically. They developed these processes in which they would give a patient LSD, pure chemical LSD, and give them a carefully guided positive experience. They were an alcoholic or had some serious psychological issues. Some of these people were cured by one session.
Wow.
Track them to this day. There are alcoholics who had one or several psychedelic sessions way back in the 60s. They've never had a drink since. There are people who just couldn't drink. Yeah. And so I have no doubt that basically what I did was I erotically reimprinted myself, And the cool thing about that, Nils, is that I had terrible self-esteem in terms of I thought I was unattractive. I thought I was not good looking. I thought I was too skinny, and I am very skinny. But some people like skinny, and his eyebrows go up. And, yeah, it's a good thing, huh? I mean, people like all kinds of people. It's not all about appearance because there's fat people, and some people get excited and thrilled by fat people. So thank goodness for that, that variety of what turns people on. That's the grace of, reality. But I found that a lot of my self-esteem issues and so forth seemed to just kind of fall away by neglect. I was feeling so good during those 6 weeks about myself, and that I just started to kind of glow, And I was told later by Joseph Kramer, oh, this is a pretty common experience when people, experience a lot of physical ecstasy. You shift, and it's strange that little animals and kids will start following you around. They just, they like your energy. It's weird.
That's funny. The other day, I've never had this happen to me before, but I was just taking a walk around the neighborhood, and a black cat came right up to me and started rubbing against my leg, and cats usually aren't that friendly, so I was wondering if that's why.
Probably, it probably is. I wouldn't doubt that you have a good energy, and if you're masturbating mindfully, on a regular basis, maybe that.
Well, yeah, and also, semen retention is probably I can imagine a big part of it.
Are you practicing that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And how do you find that effect seems to affect you?
It's like I prefer it, uh, because it seems to, I guess, level me off a bit. Like my energy remains,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't fluctuate so much.
Mm. Okay.
Um, so I'm enjoying it.
So it kind of gives you a keel to steer the ship of your journey a little bit, huh? A little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, I think like the most I've ever like right now. I think I've gone a week. No, nine. I think 9 days, and
Yeah.
it's I'm not missing it right now.
That's good. Well, and you know, the good thing if you're doing semen retention the way I think it's a really wonderful thing to do. You know, every man loves an ejaculatory orgasm if you can surrender to it. But as you know, and you may have experienced this, a lot of men there's a little bit of a letdown, or it can even be almost a mild depression. It's like, oh, you know, afterwards,
Right.
or you just go to sleep. But the good thing is when you practice the semen retention, it's good to retrain yourself so that when you do have an orgasm, don't let it affect you in any negative way. Realize I've cultivated so much erotic energy, I'm not going to lose a lot of that energy, and I'll just completely surrender to it. Just scream and shout and thrash, you know, do it as wildly as you can and fully enjoy it. You know, because there can be old programming in you.
Interesting.
You know, sort of like it's still a little bit weird, but it's healthy to, you know, I encourage men not to do a heroic, oh, I'm not going to ejaculate for 3 months. You know, give me a break. Your body needs to flush itself out, and it's good to, you know, there are. I think you do actually start to reabsorb a lot of that, the matter that's generated in your body, you know, for semen, because when you ejaculate, you probably ejaculate more than usual. Than if you're masturbating every day,
Uh
you
huh.
know, or even several times a day, which a lot of us do for when we're younger,
Hmm.
um, you probably end up not ejaculating as much as you would if you did it for a week and then, right? Did you notice a difference, or
Um,
was it more intense, or
I don't. I can't say I've noticed a difference. I mean,
okay, maybe not?
yeah, not noticeable. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you may be reabsorbing it, and if so, you probably really are doing some of the mindful masturbation practice well. That if you stay relaxed when you're aroused, you know, what people call blue balls, which is, you know, when their testicles get kind of sore and too.
Yeah, I've gotten that. Yeah.
Have you gotten that?
Yeah.
Because that's probably caused to some extent by a little bit of muscle stress, and you know, in other words, if you relax. And I suggest that even if your balls are sore, you know, you just kind of just gently pull them and massage them a little bit, loosen them up, you know, because they'll tend to pull up toward the base of your penis anyway when you're
Well, I've
highly.
noticed that like a good perineum massage
Yes, yeah,
is what helps. Yeah.
right, right behind your balls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how has reading the book and absorbing it and kind of merging it a little bit with your own film project, The Blue Flower, how has that changed how you view your penis itself? I mean, that's at the core of my book anyway.
Well, with my film, it's I have a scene in my film. It'll probably be in the final version, like a tantra scene.
Hmm.
Clothes on, but just like close, intimate contacts with another older man, like that is a tantra instructor.
Right.
And so that was more, simply focused on learning how to be intimate with someone else.
It's really close, I mean.
Yeah, and not like freak out, not, actually open your heart to another person, whether you're
Sure.
sexually attracted to them or not. Actually, the other day I had an experience, which was really awesome, where I was at a conference, and
Hmm.
right after the conference let out, I saw someone that I had only met once before in my life. He's a married man, a little bit older than me, and I walked up to him just to say hi again, just a very casual conversation.
Yeah.
But our eyes locked, and no joke, we stood there for the next 30 minutes,
Wow.
staring at each other. Like
Yeah.
our eyes were staring at each other the whole time, and it was one of the most intimate experiences of my life. And it wasn't sexual. It was just an experience of intimacy and not being afraid of
Sure.
that contact. And I think, taking it a step further to your book and making it more personal, it's the same sort of thing with sometimes with our penises, is that we feel disconnected, like you were saying, from them,
Mm,
and we're, sometimes scared of its power, it's,
sure.
and the emotions that surface. I've noticed that when I'm mindfully masturbating, for a while, sometimes with the deep breathing comes a lot of emotions. I'll actually start
Yes.
coughing out things, which is really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a
Sure.
clearing. Like right here, I feel
Mm,
like I have a lot of stuff.
sure. Sure.
So, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but just the whole idea of just regaining that intimacy, whether it's with another person, whether it's sexual or not, but especially the intimacy with, my own penis has been,
Yeah.
it's like, reclaiming an old friend or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been your best friend all along, and you kind of, not we're not always completely seeing it that way, right? I mean, because we
Right.
all have this conditioning. This is a lot of what my book is about. Is there's a lot of weird conditioning. I mean, the penis is still so taboo. Compared to, I mean, if you look at mainstream films, even television, cable television, the women are always taking their blouse
Right.
off,
Right.
getting naked, and they prance around. I mean, they're not even, you can even see everything with a woman now, and they're not actually having hardcore sex on TV unless it's, the certain kind of channel, I guess. I don't watch TV, but anyway, the thing is, if you see a penis, it's like, whoa, you notice it, and it's never going to be an erection, and certainly not going to be masturbating or actually having graphic sex,
Yeah,
which,
usually it's a comedy where it's like funny, haha,
haha, these guys are
sort of thing.
naked. They got caught outside and they can't get in their apartment. Or,
Right.
ha ha ha.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's because we're so scared of it. It's so powerful, you know.
Exactly. So your awareness is partly that the penis is a very powerful thing,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it's like
It's
it's a tool, just like anything else. I'm sure you can abuse it just as much as you can use it, but
oh yeah,
I think that's one of the things. Like, you know, sometimes I think deep down, like what we call homophobia
yeah,
is really a reaction against fear
Fear.
of the
Yeah,
penis. In a way, it's like
sure, it
because
is.
people recognize, wow, they are free.
Yeah,
They have something I don't have. Maybe, it depends.
right, right.
But it's, like when you start regaining your nature, like who we really are. I
Hmm.
mean, we're not, you know, I think we're very powerful beings. We're very loving, very very powerful beings. Like love is powerful. So
Sure,
when we start regaining that, and I'm not just saying it's just for gay people, but it's just that's what I notice because I am gay.
right. Right. Well, and what you said is really interesting too, because, for example, one of my favorite teachers is a woman named Starhawk, and she's she created what is called the reclaiming tradition in modern witchcraft, and it's not, she's very grounded. This is not woo-woo magic. It's kind of how things really work. And she talks about power from within or power with, in contrast with power over. And our culture is so fixated on power over this and power over that. And that's exactly what real magic, what I call magic with a K at the end, which is not associated just with Aleister Crowley, the crazy wild, magus of 100 years ago. It was actually first used back in the 1600s to distinguish, when you add a K to the end of the word magic, you mean um, the ability to change your reality by changing your consciousness at will. And that's opposed to stage magic tricks, which is Magic. And that's fun, but magic is the essence of what spirituality is really about and what it's looking for. Real magic, in my opinion. You know,
Interesting.
because yeah, and it's interesting how power over is a stance of weakness because you feel you need to control this or that.
Yeah.
It's really a stance of weakness and fear.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
and I mean, in my experience, what you're saying, real magic is you have to surrender to it.
Yes.
It's actually a very scary process because your ego has to sort of disappear, or get out of the way.
Yeah, you don't control it. In other words, you surrender to it. But it's not going to control you. That's the interesting thing. It's really aligning yourself with the way the universe works, I
Right,
think.
with who
You
we really are is how I would phrase it.
Yeah, and for example, when Toby Johnson wrote this amazing commentary, Joseph Kramer, who I'm so honored, wrote a beautiful little introduction to my book. It's exquisite, and it says practically everything in the book in one page. And Toby Johnson's commentary, which I think is about 20 pages, is just brilliant. It he thinks of it as a parallel to Jung's commentary on a book called The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is a classic, a spiritual classic about Chinese Tantra or Taoism, really, but it's similar to Tantra. And what Toby says there too is that what we now call the law of attraction, which is so popular in New Age spiritual circles, is a powerful thing. But he says, from his viewpoint as a gay man, perhaps partly is why he says this, but I think he's absolutely right that if you look at the physics of magnetics, what attracts things, like attracts like. And, the idea that polar opposite ends of magnets attract as plus and minus, male and female, go and stick together. Mm-hmm. This can lead to kind of a heterosexual bias, and that says, well, Tantra and Taoism, you have to have a man and a woman coming together, And the truth is, it's about your inner balance.
Right.
Whether you're a man or a woman or a gay or straight or bisexual, whatever you are. And what he points out is that the real law of attraction is based not on attraction. In that sense, attraction doesn't really exist. It's alignment. If you have two bar magnets that have a positive and a negative end, they want to go like this. They want to go, Mm-hmm. And in the metaphysics I talk about, that's the axis mundi. And of course you can align it this way, but that's the, according to traditional metaphysics, this is the male energy that connects the above and the below, and the female energy connects all four directions in a sacred circle, that goes around.
Okay.
And they come together at the middle, and that middle point is what they call the navel of the world, or there's many names for that.
Yeah.
In some native traditions, the new worlds emerge from each level below, comes through that center.
Yeah.
But
I mean, in a different way, what I am interested in is internal alchemy and the raising of the Kundalini. And so, from my understanding, Shakti, Kundalini, the feminine energy rises from your first chakra, and unites with Shiva, the male energy of the head. And, the sacred marriage happens.
Sure.
Where they meet, I guess.
Maybe in your heart,
Yeah.
or your hara. I don't know. It could be your navel center or your heart, depending on how you look at that. I think the heart. I like the way the Egyptians called your heart your central soul. They called it the ba, and to them the image was a little bird, a little hawk that had your head. It had a human face. It's called the ba. I mean, it's kind of if you look in Egyptian artwork, you can see lots of little bas flying around in some places.